Welcome back to Revelatorium, the podcast that comes around once a month, just about as often as I have seen an experimental art show recently. I went to a performance art show in Ridgewood, Queens last month, and then I went to a puppet slam in Seattle, Washington the month before that. And both were extremely impactful experiences, especially because I had just been experiencing my life as a parody of Sesame Street the month before that. So it felt like a nice culmination of the parody that is my life to attend a puppet slam. And it also felt like something of destiny for me, because when I moved to Seattle, I feel like pretty early on, I was seeking puppet arts. I'm like, I grew up with I guess it would be like marionette style, but it was like this like fuzzy dude with like two legs. It was like a little like monster looking guy, Muppet, like literally puppet looking guy. And that was so fun. And like, I feel like my dad always enjoyed like a hand puppet of like a raccoon or an opossum or like finger puppets. Like I literally have finger puppets in some of my plants because one of my lovely friends gave me the inspiration for that. And so I feel as though of all the artistic mediums that exist that I have not tried, puppetry like kind of was in the top 5 priority slots these past 4-ish years. But here's the thing. Here's kind of like the philosophy I have around getting into a scene, if you know what I mean. It's really about it's not about chasing, it's about attracting. Whoops, sometimes my wisdom just it gets to a new agey place that I worry, I fear. But no, I mean, in this case, I really actually experienced this phenomenon, but it's not like as simplistic as I don't chase, I attract. I chase the bus though. One thing you can't do is attract the bus. Like, how does that philosophy apply to everything? Let them theory, all of these ideas. And here's the thing, I'll shop around. I'll put some things in my cart. I'll take a peek at it off the shelf, put it back on, might even lift a few things. But ultimately, a lot of ideas I'm not taking outside the store. I'm like, we're leaving that one in. And sometimes I own them and then I sell them off again, the used marketplace of ideas. That's where I'm at. I'm trying to be in the used marketplace of ideas because I genuinely believe that there's so much good that already exists. Let's try to reuse before we just make sloppy fast fashion, And I feel like even ideas, like even the content marketplace of ideas, that has become so fast casual, fast food. Like it is not an experience like when you go to a puppet slam or an experiment, like a performance art show. That's like a very luxurious meal out. Like that is like an experience of like new ideas and entertainment and art that like feels really like fine dining, even if it only costs $15. It's like it just feels like such a treat because so much went into it, and it's like such a amazing opportunity to like meet someone's artistry in that way and like get introduced to something that might not leave the person's bedroom that much of the time. It's like it's really wonderful to see what people can bring out. And that's actually one of the things that I've really been revelating on this month is like, I want to see your bedroom art outside. Like I really do. There's someone in Seattle that has been drumming around one of the neighborhoods here and will just bring a drum kit and play like songs you already know and drum. And I'm like, that type of thing is more normal in like New York. But that being said, I was in New York for a week last month and I actually didn't really see many subway performers at all because I feel like the routes I was taking are not ones that like, I don't know, people are doing that as much on. Like I assume it's like closer to Manhattan or like closer to like where tourists would be perhaps. I don't know. Correct me tell me what I was doing wrong. But basically I feel like that type of thing, it's so easy not to do. Like it's so easy. I was biking home in the rain and I saw a sweet older gentleman playing soprano saxophone on the sidewalk. Okay, not that often do you get to see a soprano saxophone, okay? That's a very special instrument. Every time you see one, you are blessed. I love when they take a woodwind and they make it really small. That's awesome. Make them small. All woodwinds get smaller now. Like the piccolo, there's someone in my concert band. There's one piccolo in our entire concert band that I'm in of like 100 plus people, like 170 people. One piccolo. Every time I hear that, I'm like, it gives me relief. I don't even like the instrument of the flute though. That's the crazy part. I just like the piccolo. I don't know why clarinet. Does clarinet have the same thing? I think there's like an E flat clarinet maybe. And then like there is a piccolo trumpet actually. So maybe when I want to start dropping cash on this hobby, I'll get a piccolo trumpet, but there's really no need for that. And I don't know if I talked about when I was in jazz band in Seattle, but one of the people in that band had over 150 trumpet mouthpieces in his possession. And I was like, that is where you're just taking your hobby to new depths of wealth not before seen. Because I'm like, that's a lot of money to be dropping unless you're finding those at like garage sales for $1, but I know you're not. But anyway, the charm of a tiny instrument is not lost on me. He was just ripping it out there on the street corner. I was just so happy to see someone just like literally noodling around. I don't know how because I've tried to do this before. One of my friends that I played trumpet with in high school says that like the way that he's like kept that hobby up in his adulthood, like especially when he was in college and in med school, was like he would just sit on his porch, put a speaker on, play like his favorite charts of the moment, and then just play along to them, like current stuff that you would listen to on Spotify, like whatever is in your liked songs. He would put that on and just like improv along to it. But I don't feel like I ever gained enough of an intimacy with the instrument of the trumpet to like really get into that. Like I feel like I wasn't really risky with it as much, and I didn't step outside the box too much. I didn't get too freaky with it. My friend sent me a song from Sampha, or is it Sampha? One of those pronunciations. I feel like because he's British, it would be Sampha. And that's as much cultural literacy as I have, which is another revelation. I'm like really trying to gain cultural competency. And currently it is sort of cultural competency in like experimental art, like performance art, puppet slams. I'm trying to get my cultural competency up there. I'm always trying to get my cultural competency up about lesbians forever. I feel like but here's the thing about cultural competency. You can get up on it to the point of level 200. And that is like a beautiful amount to have knowledge about so that you can hang and you can understand and you aren't just like ignorant as fuck. But then you don't really want to get to like level 500 because that's where you get into like culture vulture, fetishization, whatnot. So this is really me speaking to my fellow white people. For the many listeners of color, you really don't need to. This is just a little PSA I'm making. I really probably don't need to tell you all because I feel like the people that are listening to me are curious people and probably enjoy learning about other cultures. But I'm like, some people are just very insular and homogenous in the way of living. And it really concerns me because I'm like, you don't want to know more? Huh? You don't want to, and it's if you can get your cultural competency up, then like you're better out in the world to be around because it's like you have more fluency basically. So anyway, Sampha has this song, No One Knows Me Like the Piano, that my friend sent me. And the lyric is like, no one knows me like the piano in my grandma's house or mother's house. And what a touching song. I feel like so much music is about your love for other people. It's really beautiful to hear a musician make a song about their love for music because I think especially a lot of the music we hear is like very commercial. And so I feel like maybe it obviously shifts your relationship to making music, but it's just so beautiful to hear a singer and a musician and an artist and a songwriter and everything still have like that reverence for it, and like how beautiful instruments are. Like I really, now that I have the upright piano in my living room and I'm playing trumpet, like that has given me so much spirit and so much life, unsurprisingly. And I did ask you all in the Rev survey this month, what shows and performances and art pieces have like really stuck with you or inspired you. I saw, well, maybe I'll hold that for when we get into those answers, but The answers were so good. I was like, sometimes when I ask these questions and I craft them, I'm like, I don't know if anyone is going to like have something to pull up from this. Like when I ask you like, what's something you've recently seen that like artistically left an impact on you? I'm like, hopefully they have an answer to that, but like, who knows at this point in the fucking content slop of it all. There's this like one Skechers billboard in Seattle that somebody spray painted over and just wrote AI slop on it, because it's like literally like it's this like AI girl wearing Skechers, like AI art on the ad. And just makes me so happy to see that, because I'm just like, we actually need, that's something we need cultural competency in, is like how to respond to AI, honestly. Because we need to not welcome it with open arms. Okay. We need to be resisting it. And I genuinely feel like that's just going to create more cultural divide in the years to come, is like people's response to like AI. It's going to really like create a lot more like political difference, social difference. So I'm trying to be mindful and batten down the hatches. Okay. But it's wonderful to see somebody else comment on that. Anyway, that Sampha song, not slop, and just really affirming to hear someone make a piece of art about their love of the craft. Obsessed with that. And if I'm being really sincere, I feel like the reason I love seeing people have relationships like that to the piano, or just toot away on the soprano sax or on the drums, like the reason that is so redeeming to me is because I feel like it is such an ancestral practice. Like we have always had instruments, you know, like such an ancient invention. Like they're so old. And so even my piano, I'm like, who else has played on this thing? Like who else has like touched these keys, and like who else's hands have been here? Like who else has tuned this thing up? I just scheduled an appointment to have a tuner, and I'm like so excited to have somebody who's so skilled at repairing this instrument come in. I think I'm going to learn so much about like how it works. Hopefully, like I literally made sure that I'm free during the appointment so I can really hopefully, like, maybe she doesn't want to do that though, but if she did, I would be all ears. I've experienced some repair people where they really enjoy, you know, potential educational opportunities to pass on their craft, but not everybody's like that. But I'm also just like grateful that we still have people that are specialized in piano tuning and piano fixing up, because it's definitely not as popular of a hobby. Like the more that people are becoming addicted to their phones and content, like the less time that people are spending on instruments. And there's so many other ways to be creative. I'm not like everyone needs to be an instrumentalist, but honestly, like if you can at least take one class, like it's worth at least trying to date an instrument for a little bit. Like just check it out, see how it goes. Obviously a piano is like a huge investment, so like that one's a little harder, but I have a friend right now is learning piano at age 28, and I'm so damn proud of her. I'm really, really impressed. And she comes over and plays on my piano sometimes because she doesn't have one quite like this at hers. And I love hearing someone in the beginning of their relationship to it. It's like, oh, I remember that. Like I remember, and like now I'm playing from this binder full of music that I learned during my private lessons growing up, because my piano teacher was the pianist at my church, and she went to music school in Russia. And so all the music is in, you know, Russian script and Cyrillic, and all of my fingerings and markings and notations and all the notes that she made about, you know, the translation of the title of it or the meaning of it, significance, and all of that is there for me to come back to. And I'm noticing that like when I started learning when I first got this piano, new music. I transposed You Got Time and I Got Money by Smurs onto sheet music so I could play it for my beloved, because I'm romantic like that. And I've basically just told all of my pookies, I'm like, if you guys have a song that's based on piano that you want to hear me serenade you with, let me know. And I've gotten a request for Perfect Places by Lorde. I've gotten a request for Don't Know Why by Nora Jones. And so at first I was like learning these pieces, new pieces to me. And finding it really challenging and feeling like my chops are like out of touch. Like, but then when I come back to the music I played when I was like 12, 14, 16, 18, I'm like, oh, I have not played this in 10 years. And yet like I remember the song, so I know where it's going. And even though the songs that I'm learning, I know where they're going too, it's just so different than when you've like, somehow I still have muscle memory from 10 years ago. And I think that's so crazy. But redefining my relationship to the piano like that, I'm like, oh, like this relationship is like more than I even consciously know about. Like my hands are doing things and anticipating things and like understanding things. Like it doesn't feel like I'm learning a piece for the first time, even though it's been 10 years. And I just think that's so wonderful. And like, I want to like keep, part of it is like, I know it's just really good for you to play instruments too. Like in like in a self-helpy, like self-optimization way, I'm like, it does keep your brain sharper. Like my great aunt started playing oboe when she was in her, I don't know, 70s, 80s at her retirement facility, because they say that like it helps keep you sharper. And like she did live much longer than her sister did, my grandma. So I'm like, that could be a multitude of things, but she definitely like kept herself as sharp as she could. And it was actually a new instrument was like the recommendation they gave, not an existing instrument. Because she played clarinet like growing up, and then oboe is like, you know, still a woodwind in the family, but like not the same instrument. So then it sharpens your brain even more. I haven't learned a new instrument since oh my God, I guess 5th grade is when I started learning trumpet, and I learned piano in 2nd grade. So like I literally like haven't like tried, but I've like moved on to like learning video editing software, or like for a minute was trying to learn DJ software, but I need help with that. I hit my limit with that, but I'll get there. That's one thing I'm getting cultural competency in, DJing. That's what I'm working on. Every time that I see someone, you know, maybe it's not every time, because there was a moment where I was walking down the street and I was on the phone with one of my friends, and this person was singing out loud, really loud on the street, just a cappella. And I was on the phone and I was like, you know what? The person on the other end of the phone could hear it. And I was like, you know what? Usually I love hearing people on the street. But the subtext was not this time. Because I'm like, I'm sorry. If it's unpleasant and out of tune, sorry, I'm not going to enjoy that. But hey, there's an audience for everything. So maybe someone else would have enjoyed that. And that's what I kind of took with me into both the performance art show and the puppet show, is like, just because I'm not enjoying something, or it's not bringing me like inspiration or like resonance, doesn't mean that like someone else in this room isn't getting it. And that's why I really appreciate going to stand-up comedy shows, is because you will hear people's laughs, and a laugh is like a fingerprint. Like someone's laugh can be very distinctive, hopefully, unless you just have like a bazillion different laughs. But I feel like I can tell like in the audience, as an audience member or as a performer, like there'll be some joke that like one person will laugh so hard at, but then that person might not laugh at a lot of the other jokes that the, you know, more of the room will laugh at. Like some things have an audience, but it's just a very small audience, and that's okay. Like the size of the audience is not what matters. Like Search Party, like how many people watch that show on HBO? That's one of my favorite shows. I think it's incredible. I just don't think it ever got like wide viewing. And like maybe it's only a few years away from just like people discovering it, but I actually think they're taking it off of streaming maybe. Or if that's a rumor, then I'm so sorry for the scare tactic, but I do need to like literally buy that show on DVD, because if they take it off of streaming, like I know I'm going to lose a piece of art that meant so much to me. And I like still haven't revisited, because it's like I'm saving it for the rainiest day of my spirit. Like when I need something to hit, that's what I'm going to pull out. Sometimes you have to like literally save things for the hurricane of the soul. And that's called depression relapse prevention. It's also just called anticipation, because I'm like, hey, it's possible, but I'm going to try my best to avoid ever feeling that low that I need to start watching TV on loop. Because ideally that's not how I spend my life, but there's some good art on there. There is. But yeah, the street art, the performance art, the puppet art, all of this, like I'm pro it being out there even when it's bad. But for the lady singing on the street, I needed to be able to walk away. Like if she had been singing in a place that was enclosed and I couldn't leave for a while, like a subway car, that would probably really bother me, because I'd be like, it's abrasive. When you're singing that loud, I'm like, she had a song in her heart though, and I can appreciate that. And in a way, I think maybe I'm a little bit jealous or like spiteful, because I'm like, I wish I could sing that loud on the street sometimes. Because but like I feel like I'll only do that if I'm like, you know, out of earshot for the most part. I'll do it with my friends, you know. Anyway, bring your art out or bring people in to see it. Like, let's share in that, because it's so important. And like, I heard that from your survey responses. So stay tuned for that. But to get back to the very, very distant point that I was making earlier in this episode, the way I found the puppet scene was not by forcing it. I knew what I wanted. I had the desire located, but I didn't know the path forward. But I knew, as long as I was just very vocal about it and was like putting myself out there, that when the scene was ready, it would find me. Or no, when I'm ready for it, it would find me. Because it's like, I want to make sure that I have enough cultural competency that I can hang in these spaces. And I feel like a lot of times people are very impatient and they just want to like force the issue and just get in somewhere. And that's how you end up, I don't know, being ham-fisted about it. Like, I saw this sign when we were driving to the Oregon Country Fair this summer that was right outside this like one little chapel, and it said, "Good things happen when God decides the timing is right." And I just couldn't stop saying that weekend, because I just thought that was like such an enchanting way to like go about life. Is just like, okay, like you don't have to press it. Like, but I'm also someone where I'm like, pray to catch the bus and run as fast as you can. Remember, I do chase when it's something like that. But it's like, part of it is the belief and the faith that the bus will come, and part of it is the action you are taking to prepare yourself for that arrival. And you can't reach the success you're trying to reach without both those things, essentially. And I feel like good things happen when God decides the timing is right is a little incomplete in my like philosophy of life. But like, I do appreciate that maybe it's trying to encourage people to be patient, because I feel like that just gets us into some scary places. Like, I feel like in my dating life, I have been very patient. Every year for the past 5 years, there have been like maybe 1 or 2 people every year that I was truly interested in. Like, there weren't that many people that I felt desire for, but I was like, you literally cannot like just produce that. Like, it is something that just happens unless anyone else has any other theories about how desire works. I'm like, that is just the way I know it to be true. But I didn't fight that really. Like, I stopped using dating apps 2 years ago, because I felt like that was a way to sort of like artificially like pump up the pace of my dating life. But I was like, I don't need to experience it. Like, I don't need to bring someone into my life like promptly. I really am willing to wait for the right person who's like meeting me where I'm at and fulfills what I'm looking for. And that has paid off handsomely. So I appreciate whenever someone tries to ease the feeling of impatience, because I was getting a little impatient trying to find the puppet scene. I'm like, when is this going to come around? Because I felt like I was meeting people in Cleveland that were involved in puppet troupes, and I had friends in LA, they were going to puppet shows, and I was like, when is that going to find me in Seattle? Because I didn't want to like just go on google.com and be like, puppet show near me. Even though that's so simple, and it's not immoral to use a search engine, it's not like the wrong thing to do, but for some reason I'm just like, I want to be patient. Like, I was eager and I was curious, but I was like, I want to be patient and just see if like I can build a life where naturally, of course, I'm going to be ending up at a puppet show someday. Like, I love the feeling of just true alignment in your life when you're looking around at the elements of your environment and you're like, wow, this is what I've wanted. And I feel like that is one of the best feelings. True alignment. Like that, when it clicks in and you have that sense of belonging, it's wonderful. And that's what I feel like when you force it or rush it, it's harder to find belonging in that, I feel like. But when like I've just let my life follow its natural course, and that has led me to stand-up comedy or puppet shows or performance art shows, it's like, okay, I must be doing something right. Like, I'm not having to go that far out of my way to like involve myself in the things I want to be involved in. Like, I went to an IKEA scavenger hunt birthday party on Sunday. I cannot even, I was going to say I cannot even articulate, but I'm like, this is literally a podcast. So what am I going to try to do? I'm going to try to articulate it because that's the medium I have right now. But I can't understate how aligned that is with me. Because I'm like, I basically grew up at an IKEA. Okay. It was literally a 10-minute drive from my house. I could have biked there. I can't tell you how many times we ate dinner at the food court, and not even the food court, the like convenient food, the small food court by the checkouts. Yeah. Because usually the food court was already closed by the time that we were in there. Like, we were zooming around to find like 2 things. Like, that was my introduction to cultural competency in Scandinavia. And like, I now, as like someone who's like, okay, biking during the winter so I can keep myself acquainted with the elements, like that to me, I'm like, okay, I really learned that from like Scandinavian culture. No bad weather, only bad clothing, and like that orientation towards like activity. And IKEA, like, it made me a little enchanted. I love the flow of the store. I love that they had childcare there. Like, that's so thoughtful. Very few places have childcare. Like, wouldn't it be nice if when you went to the Puppet Slam, well, I guess you don't need well, actually, this was like an adult puppet show, so there were not kids there. Because some of it got pretty raunchy. There was like drag and burlesque puppetry, and there was like musical puppetry. There was some abstract stuff. There was like shadow puppetry. It was beyond the pale of like what I could have even anticipated from a puppet show. Like, and it was just a few folks had flown in from out of town or like came up from Portland, one person from Atlanta, I believe. And it was like so wonderful to see people from other puppet scenes. I was like, this is such a great introduction to something I've always wanted to like be exposed to more. And all I did was just like plant little seeds along the way. And then eventually I was working an event like in September, and the girl that I was working with, her mom came, and her mom was a puppet artist, and she said she goes to the International Puppet Festival every January in Chicago. And I got her number because she was like, I'm always looking for help on my puppet project. So I was like, holy shit. Not only did she invite me to the Puppet Slam and put me onto that, actual puppet artist putting you onto the slam. So I'm like, thank you. It almost feels like, okay, she's not putting me on the guest list, but it's like, okay, you're saying that, you know, I've rounded the corner and finally I can see the entrance of the Puppet Slam. Like, she's basically ordaining, this is for you. You should be there. Because who knows? You might meet some people that aren't quite whack enough, or maybe are too whack. You need them to be wacky to go to the puppet show. And here's the thing is, like, when I was inviting my friends to the puppet show, I was pretty discerning about which friends I invited, because I was like, I know some of my friends would not like that. You know, like, puppetry really not for everyone. So I'm like, I wanted to make sure that, you know, I eventually met it in Seattle, but I wasn't sure how it was going to happen. But lo and behold, good things happen when God decides the timing's right. And timing was not wrong. Not wrong. I was definitely ready for that puppet show. Came to me brilliantly. And I also ran into somebody that I knew from the comedy scene at the puppet show. And that also gave me true euphoria of like, yeah, I'm clicked in. I'm in alignment. The fact that I know someone here, I recognize someone here, again, I'm in the right place. Like, I love running into people because it really makes me feel like, okay, I belong here. even when I see people that I'm not looking forward to seeing, I'm like, I understand why you're here because it's the same reason I'm here. And therefore, even though maybe I don't fuck with you so much, I actually feel like I am in the right place because we both share this one thing. Like, it's just really nice to, I mean, I was at the Dijon concert on Sunday night and I didn't realize that that was going to be the watering hole. Like, I guess I just didn't, I'm like, I don't really hear people talking about him so much, so I just don't know who's listening. I went with my Pookie and then boom, most of it was people he knew, but I even ran into a couple people there and I was just like, damn, like, this is the place to be. Like, I was looking around and I was like, this audience, extremely sexy, so many baddies. Everyone looked so cool. I was like, Seattle is really turning it out right now. And I think especially coming back from New York, that's exactly what I wanted to see. I was like, these are my beloved peers at the Dijon concert. I am so honored to be in a room with these individuals. I don't know much about them, but besides the way they move, the way they're looking at the concert, the way they're experiencing it, and the way they're dressed. But off that alone, I was like, this is a really good crowd of people. And I feel like New York, talking more about the sort of content farm and like spending more time on your phone and like content taking you away from like maybe being able to chomp at some of these like more experiential things, albeit like, yes, they cost money. And that's also where our phones get you, is like scrolling on your phone is like free, you know, because if you're not paying for the product, you are the product, etc. It's like you're just watching advertisements. That's part of what makes the experience like so much more corrosive. Is like when movie theaters, yes, you're watching advertisements, but well, it depends on the movie. It depends on the movie theater, because trailers I would not put in the same like category as advertisements. It's promotion, but it's not an advertisement, because I'm like, okay, this is a reveal of this like new piece of art that's coming. It's very much like, you know, effectively a thumbnail. And that's why I've really been enjoying noticing more poster design. Is I'm like, okay, figuring out how to create a thumbnail, whether it's a poster, a YouTube thumbnail, like something like that, that is like, it is inherently commercial. It is inherently commercial, but sometimes trailers are art. And I enjoy a good trailer. I do. So there's something I get out of it. Even though it's commercial, there's still some art left in there. Anyway, when you go to a concert, like I did not experience any advertisements at the Dijon show. And so it's like, you're not being berated with that. Same at the Puppet Slam, same at the performance art show. And so it's like that experience is so much richer because you're not trying to be like milked for more money, basically. And I already have tickets for a comedy show next week. I'm seeing Jared Goldstein. I'm really hopeful that it's going to be just as enjoyable as the two other, or I guess more than two. Well, I was saying once a month as often as an experimental art show, but I would say Dijon was, why I really liked it was because it was so experimental. And it actually like, it definitely pushed some people over the edge, if you know what I mean. So actually it's a little bit more often than once a month, but I hope you guys will forgive me and understand that that intro prompt is extremely malleable. So yeah, hopefully Jared Goldstein will give me something to chew on, because when I'm looking at my revelations from this month, like something that I enjoy doing is kind of like taking just a glance at like, what were the sources of these revelations? Like, how did I gain this new wisdom or this new understanding about my life? Like, what things are giving me a lot of inspiration or peace or like resolution? Like, where am I finding goodness in my life? And that's why I really appreciate when people fill out the Rev survey, because I feel like I get to know where you guys are finding goodness in your life, and it inspires me. Like, it really is like such a dialectical, like push and pull. And I feel like I want to see the Rev survey get answered every month. I always look forward to like seeing what's on that spreadsheet. And I can't say the same about most Google Sheets, you know? But the performance art show, when I went to New York, that was the second night that I was in New York. And that like completely kind of like launched me into this period of like, I don't know, witnessing or connecting or like finding, gathering, wayfinding. I don't know. It was like, it definitely steered me on the trip to like pay attention to certain themes. Because the last performance artist that we saw I think 5 total that night, and she was the 5th, and hers tonally was so different because the other ones were very either like intense or dramatic or, you know, heavy. And this started out in a very like zany way where she just gets up there, and the first part of it, she goes up to the mic on its stand, and she just holds up this 8.5 by 11 piece of paper and starts reading from it, and is just saying things like 50 fall first date ideas, guys with daddy issues versus girls with daddy issues, how to harness your Venus in Libra. And she was just going back to back to back, saying all of these inane little titles. And I was hysterical. Like I wish I could go back and reference it. Like I really genuinely do wish I could watch the video again because it was incredible. I didn't take a video, but like I wish I could see it all again. Genuinely. It was so funny because it was just all of the headlines and like subject titles of reels and TikToks that are dating advice, and or like what you'd see on your explore feed basically. And I felt really recognized by it. And it was one of those things where I could tell some people in the room were really captivated and some people were not as much like relating to that. But I'm like, damn, it's really beautiful and profound to see someone like see me without any introduction before that show. Like I am just someone off the street. Like I really had no idea what the piece was going to be about. And it was so perfectly up my alley. I was like, it's amazing to like just, I really have not seen performance art in my life. It has taken me a long time for that to find me. And finally it has. I would say like, of course, I've seen performance art inadvertently that was like in a larger kind of like showcase. Like I would say a lot of the puppetry was performance art as well, because it's a very blurry thing. But this was like specifically a performance art show. And I think a lot of people like poo-poo or like laugh at performance art because it can be very like, I don't know. For some reason, I want to say self-aggrandizing. I don't even know if that's the right term for it, but it can be very, I feel like I can see people not liking it because it's kind of like masturbatory. Like it's very much that person's pet project. It can be very abstract, I feel, or just, I don't know. It's like, I think sometimes it challenges some people and maybe some people doesn't challenge them enough, but it's like, I think a lot of people are frustrated by it because they're trying to solve it and try to figure out what it means. But for me, I'm just kind of like, my orientation this first time, I was like, I'm just going to experience it. I'm not going to worry too much about like how to properly receive it. Like, you know, am I supposed to think this is good or am I supposed to think this is bad? I'm like, that's just not the way I want to go into an experience. And I feel like I've talked about this plenty on the podcast, but just reading reviews before you go in someplace, and like a lot of the revelations I had this month as well, or a lot of the revelations I've had in the past and this month came out of word of mouth recommendations, like the Puppet Slam, word of mouth recommendation, the performance art piece, word of mouth invitation. These weren't things that I found off of Instagram or the internet, which is a perfectly fine way of finding things. But it's like when you're invited into something, it gives you maybe a greater sense of calm that I'm like, oh, I know that I like belong here because I was like invited, and I can go into this not feeling like maybe as much anxiety of like, oh, what's the proper way to go into this? Because I will say the Laser Dome, 50th time I've mentioned that on the podcast, if not more. The Laser Dome is someplace that I went for the first time off of a word of mouth recommendation, but the person that gave me the word of mouth recommendation did not take me. So I went with another person who was also there first time. And so we didn't know like the best practices, which is fine. I still had a good enough experience that first time that like I want to go back. Like the first time we went, we sat in like the chairs. It's kind of like movie theater seats. But I'm like, ideally, you're laying down on the ground. That's how to best experience it, in my opinion. So I just have had so many practical cases of like a word of mouth recommendation allowing me to like enter the space with more confidence maybe, or ease, or like acceptance, grace. I don't really know, but it's like I'm not coming into something as skeptically because I know that like I'm welcome there because I've specifically been invited. and that creates a different like attitude or orientation. You could get that attitude or orientation without being invited, but it just is more of a secure, like for me, it's like very secure way of getting it. But yeah, I think I was just like, sometimes when I go to the symphony, my mind really wanders off, and I feel sometimes bad about that because I feel like maybe I'm like understanding or like interpreting or like experiencing the art the wrong way, and that I should be like very present for it. But I think my relationship with classical or symphonic music is that it's supposed to take you away. And it's like to me, it's like the way that I learned about music, like from my piano teacher specifically, I would say. And that's like the benefit of getting private instruction like that, is as I learned from someone like who was very well educated in music. A lot of these pieces were created to paint a world. It's like these classical pieces and these composers were around before movies, before films, like before cinema. Like, and to me, it's like they're creating cinema. And one of you said in your response to, what is some piece of art that has really impacted you recently, is like you went to the symphony and you saw the Firebird suite. And that is like a very cinematic piece of music. It's used in so much cinema because of that. But it's like, I feel like if my mind is drifting and I'm thinking about other things, it's probably because going to the symphony produces like a similar feeling in me as like staring out of a train window. It's like very wistful. And I don't want to be made to feel like that's the wrong way to experience it. And then if I'm not like paying attention to all the technical and like taking notes on it, like it's music, dog. Like just enjoy it. And I feel like things are just easy for me when I'm at a show. Like I feel like occasionally the audience, there's some skerfuffle. Like someone at the Dijon show kept yelling at him to turn the lights down because his set design was very like Friday Night Lights, like very much like you're in a football stadium at night, you're on the turf and the lights are shining at you, is like the feeling that I felt being there. And so the lights were very bright and like it was shocking and it was intense, but it's like Dijon's music is really intense. Like he created something in there very like ravey, and I feel like I had an expectation of that coming off of the McGee concert I went to last year, just like blowing me away. I was like, I feel like these artists are getting at a different like experiential attitude that you can like create, and I don't think everyone in that space was ready to be challenged like that and have it be more experimental and not something that's just like more palatable, because I've seen so many different other concerts in that space and none of them had been like that. Like that created something like people were having we were in the back, so I kind of got to see like a lot of people in the audience and how they were responding, and people were having like very different experiences to the music. And I think that's like really powerful that you can like conjure that up and like, can put you under a spell. Like I felt like I was really under a spell of that concert, and it was so enlightening. But going back to the performance art piece and the revelations that generated, the performer herself could like barely even say the words without. Part of what was so hysterical was that she found it so funny. Like I could tell that like she was just like, this stuff is ridiculous. And part of coming to terms with that and like realizing that was hearing those 50 things in a row. And I got to talk to her a little bit after the show, and she fully was just like, yeah, this stuff is like inane and like it's nonsense and it's bad, all this TikTok and Instagram dating advice. It's like, I'll speak about it more, but it's like a lot of stuff is just getting really regressive and like very gender essentialist, and like honestly is just trying to like prey on your psychic vulnerabilities and like just try to create insecurity where there is none and then try to solve for that security. So it's like they are introducing the problem and the solution at the same time. It's like, okay, amazing, you put out the fire, but like who fucking lit the flame? I'm not going to applaud you for that and for helping me when you're the one that put the problem in the first place that I needed help with. So anyway, I don't know how. I wish I got to ask her. I would genuinely love to interview her for 45 minutes, but I don't know how she got to the point of realizing this stuff was all bad, or if she just like knew from the jump. But for me, it wasn't that easy. And I didn't even really notice how much of the content on my Explore feed had shifted towards that. And I feel like Instagram knows so much about you, and it has socially mapped you so well that like if it knows you have a Bayfie, if it knows you have a Pookie, like it could really be serving you up couples content, you know? And even when you're single, of course, it's like serving you up some couples content, but like maybe different. Like the algorithm has just gotten so specific now, and it's starting to get perverted, in my opinion. Like it's perverted what's on there now. Like it's just not like good faith. Actually, a lot of it's not actually trying to help you. It is trying to make you feel hurt, I do believe. And like that's what I'm seeing the more that after I saw that piece, kind of tried to make sense of it. Jordan Teresa put out a video that TikTok dating advice is misery, like it's miserable. And it was like a 45-minute long video, and she exposed me to so many other phenomena that are happening on TikTok and on social media right now that like I just like largely have not seen. But there's this really great essay on Substack called Boyfriend Land, and it really just speaks to the amount that you can commodify a relationship and make content out of this connection that you found. And in one way, I understand the initial like impetus to like put your relationships out there online, because I have 100% done that, and I've been through the full life cycle of it. And now I'm like out the other end, and I'm like, I regret doing that to my relationships and like pumping them into content. A lot of it was, like I said, initially coming from a place of like, I love these people so much. I want literally everyone to see how amazing these people are. Like, I'm just so proud of this like connection. I like love these relationships. Like I want to broadcast them because I'm just like, I want to shout it from the rooftops type of thing. That's like a very beautiful way to orient yourself. And yet then the more you do it, or the more I did it, I found that it created this like, not void, but maybe like imprint of like, oh, this is what I do. I post boyfriend or I post friend. Like I have seen so many people build careers on social media off of a friend group. David Dobrik, bruh. Like it is not lost on me that people on the internet would be very attracted to content about people with rich relationships. Because a lot of the time when you're spending so many hours on social media, or like you consume so much content, that pretty much means you're not with other people. Like hopefully you're not consuming content while you're sitting next to your bestie. Hopefully we're not spending a lot of time together that is very invaluable time like that. Like honestly, I have some friends that are treating social media like a smoke break. Like if you want to go on Instagram, you have to go outside your apartment building to do that, because it is a vice. Like it is like, somebody else made this amazing like comedy video where basically it was like, hey man, can I bum a scroll? Like not your vape or your cigarette, but like, can I bum a scroll? Cause like they were like sober from Instagram. And it's like, you can tweak however you want to tweak, and like social media can be one of those things. And so you have to be very, very cognizant about like the role that it plays in your life. But like, it makes a lot of sense that like you like, that's how you can develop a parasocial relationship, not just with one person, but 2 people or 5 people or 6 people or 9 people. And that can fulfill the side of you or this part of you that maybe wants to feel like you have that too. But the problem with that and consuming too much of that is if you're not also pursuing that in your own personal life. Like if you want that and you're seeking it through parasocial means, I really would encourage like trying to seek that through social means and then using parasocial as like a supplement. And I feel like that's like the journey that a lot of people specifically around these parts of the internet are seeking, is like how to really build a sustainable foundation for your future wellness. I'm a wellness podcast at the end of the day, because social hygiene is wellness. Like I feel like that is what keeps me the most well. So no, I'm not like a sea moss girly. No, I'm not like Do I enjoy a little spirulina here or there if it's in the acai bowl? Sure. But for sure, I'm not someone that's like optimizing my like health in that way, but I'm very much prioritizing like my social health. And it makes me nervous to see people. I mean, this article is really saying that girls, like women, post their boyfriends or their husbands a lot more than husbands or boyfriends post their girlfriends. And I was thinking about that, and the only like content I can think of that was a boyfriend posting his girlfriend is this one style of video I've happened across where it'll be like life before her. And then it's very much like a split screen of before and after, like his bed without her, just very plain, with her, a bunch of like stuffed animals. His desk without her, very plain. His desk with her, a bunch of plants. And I said that to one of my friends, and they immediately were just like, oh, so it's all her reproductive labor, like taking care of a home, like dressing it up to be more comforting. Like that's reproductive labor. That's like making a home, you know? And so it's like, he's just recognizing women for their skills and like reproductive labor. And I think that's like maybe a little bit too harsh of a read on it. I don't know. I think it's, upon first view, I thought the video was very sweet. But then the more I think about it, I'm like, actually, like some of the time the examples are cute, but some of the time I'm just kind of like, well, it's very much like life as single dude versus life with wife. It's like, sometimes I'm like, like that just, I don't want to see that. I don't want to see things be too gender rolled. You know what I'm saying? But just knowing that like women are the ones posting the majority of like the couple's content, it's setting a lot of people watching that content up to be like, as a woman, having a boyfriend is aspirational. And of course, like falling in love is aspirational. But I guess to me, there's like a fine line between people being, like I said before, like shouting it from the rooftops, just so happy to like have found just so much connection and intimacy and love with somebody. I think that's truly, I'm a Pisces. I'm a romantic. I think that's amazing. I think that's beautiful. Like I am very charmed by that as well. But then when it gets to be just like having a boyfriend, like the position of boyfriend, and I feel like it gets to be a very rigid thing. And then people are doing boyfriend tests where they're like, you know, giving their boyfriend a tangerine, and based on how he responds, he can pass or fail. And there's just a lot of like these little tests that you're supposed to give him to ascertain whether or not he's like worthy or not. I just feel like the category of boyfriend has become a lot more like rigid or narrow in terms of like what is esteemed or admirable or expected, what not. And I'm like, 100% we need to be having standards for how we want to be treated, and we need to create relationships of mutual respect. But how that looks should and could be a million different things. And I think, not to say that there are no alternative representations of like relationships on the internet. I feel like a lot of the times when people are like showing off their boyfriend, it's for doing something that they deem like obscure or like bizarre. I think I just have been especially like scared or worried about the way this is headed on the internet when I hear about Gen Z and younger women going back to read books from the early 2000s about dating, like men are from Mars and women are from Venus, if that's what it is. Why men date bitches or why men love bitches. These books, from my understanding, and again, like I haven't read them, so who's to say, maybe they're actually enlightening and brilliant, but I really don't expect that to be so based on the media that was coming out in that era. I don't think that that's the type of feminist literature I want to go back and read, but a lot of it is just very like gender essentialist. It's like men do this and women do this and very strict gender roles. And I'm just like, I guess some people want that in their relationships and they're okay with that. But for me, it's like, I don't want my role in any one of my relationships to be so standardized and rigid, and like the people in my relationships to be testing me with a generic test. I'm like, huh? I do believe in creating litmus tests. I think that's like a very rational, like sensible thing to do is like, I enjoy like one of my litmus tests for who we want to keep close to me is, you know, do they show up to the occasions and opportunities I invite them to? Because that's like an important trait that I want from a friend. Like, I think it's fine to like evaluate your relationships. I think that's fine. But like doing it off of this test you saw on TikTok that's supposed to guarantee whether or not this is going to be the love of your life. Like so much of the dating content and so much of what like this performance art piece and maybe Jordan Teresa's video as well we're pointing to is like, it's meant to create this like psychosis in you, this neurosis in you that's like finding faults and things that didn't have faults before. It's like so much of what content is about, again, is making you feel like it's a lot of it is like self-harm. Like you're going on there to self-harm, to be perfectly fucking honest. Like you're trying to hurt your own feelings. There's nothing wrong actually, but you're just looking for ways to just kind of like emotionally damage yourself a little bit. And that performance art piece woke me up where I was like, okay, it's time to stop scrolling on the things that say how to harness your Venus in Libra, because I don't want like super prescriptive, like dogmatic thinking about my relational life. Like I just don't want that. I want to gain inspiration. Sometimes you can get that on social media. Sometimes there are genuinely good thinkers out there and like people that are behaving in good faith. They're good actors. Like that 100% still exists on the internet, but it's getting more and more rare. And I really want to hear from people with strong social emotional skills. That is really who I want to hear from. And what's the litmus test that you can do when you're watching people on the internet to figure out if that's them? I don't know. Like leave your comment below how you personally, when you're watching people on the internet, how you determine if there's someone that's worth keeping around for your own sanity. Because I do feel like I have a pretty decent like radar because I am a peer in that space. It's like I've gotten to meet people I've watched on the internet and experience the sincerity of them and like the social emotional skills of them. But I don't want to be consuming content and advice from people that are quite frankly like under socialized and behaving in like very fearful, spiteful ways. Like I really don't want to harden myself. And I feel like the more craze around this and the more like heightened intensity of like, oh, I need a boyfriend because I'm seeing people tout like how good this is. Like, I just wonder if that's getting people into situations that they quite frankly should not be in. Like how much of dating app usage is going up because the content empire of couples shit is like growing. And I think I'm especially just like have been like very radicalized about this. And I'm just thinking very strongly about it because like I have been someone who's posted couples content and so much of it was false or like lacking truth. Like there was truth there, but it was never the whole truth. And of course, that's just the underline of the internet is that you're never getting the full picture. But like not even my own relationships, but relationships I've been secondhand to, seeing how they post on social media and then knowing what they're like behind closed doors. It's like, this just isn't what we should be putting our stock into. Like if you're building your relationship to look like something you're seeing on the internet, like just again, like not a very stable moorage for you. You're going to be on a dock on water with that. So it's going to feel like you've got solid land, but actually underneath it all, there's a current. Versus I'm like, how do I set up my camp on the most fertile soil in the world? Because I want my relationships to thrive. I don't want them to be infected with like fear and suspicion and like jealousy and possessiveness. And like so much of this content is about like, a lot of it's more toxic positivity too, where it's just like how to know if you're in your relationship with your soulmate, or how to know if, I wish I weren't filming with my phone for this second half of the podcast so I could go on Instagram and just like actually take a peek, because I looked at it on the couch with my friend the other night because I was like, is this what your feed looks like? Because mine is definitely still mixed. Like there is some just like style content, there's like, you know, other little like affirmations and memes and like, you know, musicians and little animals and stuff. But then there's also definitely the like relationship carousels is what I'll call them, where it's just like a text slideshow of just like how to know if you're fighting the right way or how to know if you're the right way. And it's like just the internet is like a really hard place to be for neurotic people. It really is. So check to see when you're scrolling if you are there for neurotic reasons or you're there because you're getting very enlightening angelic wisdom from it. Because it's pretty easy to tell. It's also like we're exposing ourselves to content from like these accounts where we have no idea this person's background or history or anything. And I feel like it's just, I would like to know. And that's why ultimately like word of mouth, interpersonal perspective is much more valuable. Like if you're able to get advice from someone who you actually in your real life see the way they move and you appreciate it, then that's going to go a lot further than someone on the internet that you really just don't know. Unless you have a very, 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 very sharp radar, but hard to come by. I think to round this out, even beyond social media, I've been scared about modern dating culture because I did read 2 chapters of the Tony Tolithama book Rejection that my friend lent me. And actually I read 2.5. The third one sent me over the edge where I had to put the book down because it was that dark and twisted, because I feel like it revealed so many truths about modern dating culture, modern social life. And like the second essay was basically about this friend group that all they really did was text in a group chat about their dating lives. They were people that like met in some school program or like some pre-professional program or some job. And then they live in the same city, but they don't actually hang out as a group. The group chat is pretty much just used to like go back and forth and make jokes and like talk about the dates that they've been going on. And like, it's very entertaining, like to meet new people and go on dates. And like, there's like so many amazing rom-coms that are a testament to that. Like I am someone who like, I have always enjoyed seeing the way people date. Like I love that. Even as friends though, I'm just like, I love seeing the way that all the different ways we can like get to know somebody and spend time with somebody and like develop intimacy with somebody. Like, so I feel like I'm especially prone to consuming content around like, you know, modern dating, modern social life, whatever. But specifically in that chapter, like this group chat that was pretty much just about dating and never about actually like building friendship outside of that, it really haunted me because it was so real. Like I see that so clearly around me. Is a lot of, especially women are, I don't know if men are doing this, if they have group chats where they just talk about the dates they're going on. That would greatly surprise me. But if anyone's a part of one of those as a man, let me know. Gay or straight, queer or whatnot. But yeah, I guess it just like, it gives me a lot of pause because I'm like, I'm scared of relationships being built on dating and not on anything else. Because I'm like, there's a limit to like, I think it's fine. And I encourage a lot of heterogeneity in your relationships. Like I enjoy having some people that are just party friends, and I enjoy some people that, you know, I can spend an entire weekend with and have a really amazing conversation for 18 hours a day with. And I enjoy people who can paddleboard with me, and I enjoy people who can do a road trip with me. Like these are all different, not necessarily the same person, right? It's like these are different occupations to inhabit with me in a relationship. But I'm like, I just feel like we're not getting social support. Like I'm like, it's totally fine to do that. But in the book, like these were her only friends. So I was like, okay, these are your only friends and you're not actually hanging out with them. You're just only talking about dates. So therefore your relationship's only based on you going on dates. And that's what's fueling the friendship. So it just feels like a little backwards, where I feel like the friendship should be fueling you. And hopefully through friendship is low-key how you're getting dates. I'm like, hopefully through knowing people is how you're getting dates. But if you don't know people, then you need to use dating apps. So that's how they trap you, is you're just going to gain a larger and larger dependence on the dating apps if you're not building relationships that would necessarily lead you to like meet new people. But like it takes a good amount of like relationship building to get to the point with people that maybe they want to introduce you to their larger social world and like invite you to parties and whatnot. So it's like, if you're spending all your time just dating so you can talk about dating with your friends, then it just feels like inverted, you know, in a way. And yes, fictional book, but like it's just a reference for like something I'm seeing mirrored in my real life. Although I will say the people that have group chats like that, it's not their main like source of social support. It's just like something ancillary. So I'm like, okay, that's fine. Like I get it. It's like very entertaining to like date and like tell the stories, like for sure. I'm obviously doing that too, is updating people and keeping them apprised. But I also am like, I don't want my relationships to become like content, whether that be for social media or for the group chat. Like I don't want to see my relationships. Yes, I suppose if I'm going to go walk around the world and say my relationships are my life's work, I don't want my life's work to become content. Like I don't want to commodify something so precious to me. And I did that for so many years. I feel like I've really pulled back, and which has meant that like my content when I was making YouTube videos, which like I desperately want to structure in time, November and December, to start cracking away on the next YouTube video. But I feel like a lot of my podcast work, zine work, YouTube work, all of that, those projects have been pretty much just about like either just about me and my realizations. Okay, well, they're about me and my realizations, but of course those are born out of my social reality. So it's like you're understanding that like I'm existing in the context of everything that came before me, of course. But also I am like, I'm not trying to co-opt my relationships and like, I mean, I don't know, maybe one day I'll look back at this podcast and be like, no, you were still doing that. That's what I get worried about, is I'm like, oh, is it okay that I'm doing this? But I feel like it's good. Part of this month has been about reorganization and evaluation. So I have been finding myself in a place where I'm looking at the priorities in my life and I'm going, can I ascertain the importance of this, the value of this, the purpose of this, and use that to sort of like re-level my life? And so this month in the Revelatorium calendar is going to be called Reorg, which I just feel like is a cool name, Reorg, or Eval. Either of those sound cool, and they actually sound like siblings. Reorg and Eval, they were like these amazing two little boys that grew up down the street from me. And I learned so much from them. And then we stopped hanging out because they moved away in first grade. But love Reorg and Eval. They'll always be in my heart. But yeah, I feel like I'm just evaluating, you know, how I spend my time and like what I want to continue to do. And I still, despite it all, I find goodness on the internet, and I find art on the internet, and I find inspiration on the internet. So I'm like, it's not all a lost cause, but it does really dishearten me to see how much has just become slop and how much has lost like the integrity of humanity. Not to be so grandstanding about it, but like we have fallen so far. And so what I don't want to see happen is like beautiful, sacred relationships get warped into content, and there to be an incentive to do things for your partner so that they can post on their Instagram story about it, and that you get some sort of validation from their online approval of you, because it's a slippery slope. It is a slippery slope. And I'm definitely an alarmist. I'm definitely someone who I'm like, I do actually just feel like I'm the canary in the coal mine right now, though. I'm like, I feel like we're not even seeing all that could happen. Like, we haven't even experienced the full force of like AI girlfriends yet. So like, just get ready, you guys. I feel like this month I've just been feeling a lot of fear and like a lot of just scared feelings about like where we're headed culturally. And I don't like to be like so alarmist about it, because I'm like, of course the system has sucked. And as long as, for many, many decades before this, for 100 years before this, people have been saying the system sucks. So it's not like it's new. It's not like new news. But I think just I've experienced a heightened sense of, fear for where we're going, because I feel like initially something like a dating app can bring you closer to people where maybe you wouldn't have been exposed to as many people. But now on the tail end of it existing, I feel like it's actually kind of bringing us away from each other. And the more of this like modern dating advice, very trad advice that you see on the internet, the more that it's creating this like, just like antisocial, fearful, like paranoid, bad faith, like entrance. Cause like so much of this content is just basically being like, people are gaslighting and people are doing bad things, and like you should be skeptical, and like you should test people, and like we shouldn't trust, and especially when you're dating so much and you're like using dating apps to go on like multiple dates a week, or just like really jamming up your calendar full of it, like of course you're experiencing that cycle of it like so much more so much faster. And I feel like for me, in the 5 to 6 years that I was single, it took me a while to like bounce back from like after I would have a fling or a brief encounter or any type of like entertainment of desire. Like that did take me some time to like step back into like myself and like return to like a sense of positivity and like a good outlook on things. Like I just feel like the story that I'm seeing being told on social media about dating is just not a spirited one. So it's been bringing me down a lot. And especially being in New York, I just experienced a lot of stress. I like almost don't want to say it because I'm like, I don't want it to be that way. Like, I don't want the people that I know in New York to be so stressed. But like when I go there, it does not feel like a vacation. It definitely feels like what I said while I was there when people asked why I was in town was like, I'm here for a conference of hanging out with my friends. And multiple people were like, oh, that is what New York feels like that. And I was like really kind of shocked that 6 days of me being there, I was able to see a window into that. But I was like, no, I'm definitely being exposed to like, oh, I'm commuting 45 minutes on the train to see a friend. It's like there are so many different sessions. There's so many different speakers. You're running across the conference hall. Everything's very conflicting. And like, it's just like also just so many buildings. Like so many buildings. I'm like, it's just not a relaxing, like relieving experience. But at the same time, it was like extremely like fulfilling. Like the days were so sunny and I got to see so many amazing, beautiful parks. And like by the magical act of bubbling, I was able to meet this wonderful woman who was a fellow bubbler, and she told me about the history of the benches I was sitting on being donated to Venus and Serena Williams, and two of the initial Black champions of Wimbledon, and how her friend just beat brain cancer, and she gave us like literally a blessing that we need to keep our positive attitude up because the pandemic and 9/11 and Sandy Hook took that away from us, but we need to stay happy and pro-social and like bubbly the way we were. And I was like, whoa, that can happen. That can happen. Like New York, a lot of density of people, like you can have some really amazing interactions. I'm not saying that like the time wasn't spent well. I had some really, really good days in New York where I was like, this is just the best day ever. Like it's just going so well. I love my friend there. Like it was a very strong experience, but it was not soft at all. And I'm like, I'm so soft. Like I'm from the West Coast and I'm like extremely soft. And I know that about myself and I'm not really looking to change it. But New York is just like a very harsh place to live. I was hearing so many roommate horror stories that obviously gave me like disdain, because I was just like, oh, it hurts to hear people just mistreating each other. And I just really noticed my stress responses were up in New York. Like I'm stopping in the bodega super often to get some sugar. Like I'm going to get a pound cake, or I'm going to get something just to tweak on sugar a little bit. And I was drinking caffeine every day, which I never do anywhere else. And it wasn't even making me like anxious or jittery the way it does other places. It was just like, that's what my body needed to keep up with the pace there. And I had a lot of like restless muscles. I just felt like if I'm actually paying attention, like I'm not at ease here. And one of my friends who has grown up in New York said that they've never realized how much the noise pollution affected them until now, like 30 years into it. They went to the Adirondacks for a couple weeks and were like, oh, damn, it does get to me. It does impact me. And I'm like, it does for sure when I visit there. And so I really just, I feel like that environment, I was talking to people about dating advice, and also like the intersection between dating advice and content is especially like apt in New York, because I feel like New York is oftentimes where a lot of that is generated. Like a lot of people move to New York for content, and then a lot of the content becomes going on dates in New York, or, you know, even friend group content in New York, whatever. But like someone was making the claim that like the dating advice content or the couples content is especially consumed in New York because there it's like, because the conditions are much harsher, like it's just so expensive to live there. It's like, it can really be tough. Having a bay fee, having a pookie, having a lover can really soften things up. So if you can manage to get one of those, it can really open your life up. Suddenly you have go-to definite support. And suddenly you probably have someone who you can split rent with, and it can come down a lot. And you don't even need a 2-bedroom. You could just do it on a 1-bedroom, and it'd be even cheaper. Like, so I think it is no mistake that this dating alarmism in me has cropped up after a week in New York, but I do fear that we're regressing, you guys. So please let me know if you've noticed any of that, how that has manifested in your life. I also just feel like the stories that my friends were telling me as I was in New York about people, you know, subtweeting on Instagram, close friends about someone they used to be in a relationship with, or people surveilling each other on Find My Friends and using it as a form of self-harm, or people staying in really awful relationships. Like, just, it came to me in a flash. Like, it really did. And this time in New York, I think I got even more acuity for like the feeling of transplantation, because I was in a couple spaces in New York this time where I was like, oh, like it became apparent to me that I was around a lot of transplants. And it's like one thing to be a transplant, it's another thing to move like a transplant. Like I feel like if you're a transplant, you should be gaining cultural competency in the place you lived at warp speed, light speed, God speed. Like I genuinely believe it's like really important to put down roots. But I think the problem with transplants specifically in New York is like that is a place where a lot of people just go to get their New York experience. Like it's a commodity because of so much content created around it. It's just like something it's packaged up to you and you want to buy it or lease it for a couple years, and you just don't. Like a lot of people, I feel like, just know that they're not going to be in New York. They're not actually city girls. They don't actually want to build that life. And that's okay, but it doesn't mean that you shouldn't be still like contributing to the place that you live. And I think I just noticed this trip that extractive nature of being the role, the position of capital T transplant, like it's felt. And also the reverence that the people that I know that grew up in New York or like have actually planted down roots there as transplants have for it. Like so much of like your interest in throwing down for the place you live and protecting it and giving back is born out of like reverence. And so I think it gave me like newfound appreciation for Seattle because I was like, this is a place that I deeply revere. And that's why I'm like so interested in like building here and placing myself here and like even just, you know, being a patron of the arts here. It's like, I don't want to just be in my apartment scrolling around. It's like, I really want to like support. Seattle venues are closing so often right now, you guys. Like there have been 3 venues, 2 of them being comedy venues. Well, actually they were all sorts of different types of art venues that have closed in the last few months. And it's like really devastating because those are spaces that have hosted me and I've had like really amazing times in and have given me a lot of inspiration and exposure to new types of comedy and art and music. Like it sucks to see these in-person venues close. And I'm not going to say that like going to them more as a patron is what 100% keeps them open. But I'm like, I do know it's important to patron the arts so that they can keep them open. Like places are not very obvious about the reasons that they're closing down. So I feel like it's hard to know exactly, but I'm just kind of like, it's so important to support what's going on in your neighborhood, in your city. And some of that looks like, you know, being a patron. Some of that looks like, a lot of it looks like being an organizer, organizing events, organizing fundraisers, organizing politically. So anyway, fuck transplants. As a transplant myself, I'm like, that's the political orientation. Like you need to know that like you need to be a transplant trader. Like in the same way you need to be a class trader. If you grew up rich, you need to be a transplant trader. Those are my politics. So being very transparent about the politic of revelatorium, as always. Final revelation before we move on to taking and leaving. This one did not come from New York. It did not come from an art show. It came from a podcast, which is one reason why I do want to continue this project. And like when I'm evaluating my priorities, like this continues to be one, is because I'm like, I get a lot of good shit out of podcasts and out of interviews and stuff. So I'm like, it's still worth it for me to be plugging away on here. But the more that like my time on Instagram eroded, the less time I wanted to put stuff out there because I was just like, I don't actually want to contribute to this ecosystem anymore. But I feel like I'm still getting rewards out of watching YouTube videos and podcast episodes. Like they're leaving lasting marks on my life in some ways. And so the piece of content that had me chewing away was something that Dr. Orna said, who is the therapist from couples therapy. And I think I spoke about this last episode, but I cannot stop getting those served to me. I think I finally developed a resistance to them now where I don't have to click on them as much, but they're just so juicy and they give me so many great anecdotes. And I'm like, anecdotes are invaluable. But she had said something on the podcast when asked about, and here's the thing is like, I know this got turned into a clip because when I've been saying it, I've had a couple people that are very much on TikTok, like already know it, but it was like one of the last things in the podcast episode. So I'm like, you would have to watch if they did not clip that, you'd have to watch the entire thing to get it. And something about that feels good. I'm like, I liked that. Like I arrived at this after listening to the full hour plus of like the context of her point of view. And again, that's why I'm just like, I have been making some reels out of my podcast episodes, but I'm like, ultimately, I don't really want to have to like traffic in that. I don't want to have to play that game because I'm just like, I think I'm just okay with fewer people watching it if they're watching it more fully. Like, I think I'm just okay with that. And that's like what I'm willing to wager or, sit with. But she was asked a question at the end about something she used to believe in relationships or believe about relationships that she no longer does. And she says she used to believe that like relationships were really about compatibility, but now she thinks they're really about openness to difference. And that's what's more important in relationships. I feel like I've just been reviewing that theme more and more. Like, where does openness to difference crop up in my life? And I agree that most conflict is born out of you're different than me. You're valuing something different than me. You're approaching this different than me. And that's causing friction. And I'm not liking that, because it's easier when we're just in harmony and we just naturally agree. But I think when you're chasing compatibility, it can lead to a sense of like, in me, I feel like a sense of like perfectionism, where I'm searching for like top dog of compatibility, or like king compatibility, like as if you can get to a perfect amount of compatibility, like 100%. And I will say, like, there are people in my life that I feel more compatible with, in terms of like, I don't have to explain myself as much to them, or like we naturally are more aligned. But there is nobody that has ever been in my life that I have been 100% compatible with. And I don't want to lead my life feeling like I just haven't met that person yet. And I feel like that's why, let's get back to this. That's why so much of the modern dating advice on TikTok and Instagram, whatever, has been bothering me, is because I feel like it's like pushing this narrative of like, if this person isn't these 5 bullet points, then they're not compatible for you. But ultimately, the skill and like the orientation that needs to be developed is more so, how do you like approach difference, and how do you move towards each other? And like the other person on the podcast was talking about how when he goes on vacation, he really likes having things very scheduled and itineraried, and his wife doesn't like that. She likes to be more, laissez-faire and spontaneous. And so the compromise they came up with was not like, well, one person just needs to suck it up. It's okay, one day we do an itinerary day, and the next day we just get to fuck off and like figure it out as we go. And they actually came to appreciate the other person's way of being when they each got what they wanted. And I was like, I want to believe that worked out as perfectly as he said it, but I don't. But even if it works out half as good as he said it, it's like, okay, that's something to note, is like, you can, or like another example that he gave was like, he likes to, when he's hosting, leave the dishes for later, but his wife prefers to like clean up and like start doing the dishes like while people are still there. And so then she just like has the house clean. And so the compromise they came to with that is they will do the dishes after the party's over, but like he guarantees that like they will get done. And it's not just going to be left for the next day, because that would give her anxiety. And he'll help with those dishes and make sure that happens. And so it's like, okay, you're recognizing like the underlying need that's there, and being open to that difference, and open to like moving with that difference instead of like against it. And the more we consume rigid, very essentialist advice about how we should act and how we should be, the less open to difference that we are, I feel like. And so it worries me if this is true. And I want to believe that someone with as much experience as Dr. Orna, being a couples therapist, and someone that like, I've not met her in person. I've only watched content of the work that she does, but even just off that, like talking about the radar, I'm like, I feel like that's a good egg. Like if 30 years I came back and I was evaluating her advice and I was like, she's way off, that would surprise me. That would surprise me, because I do feel like she's just really bright. She's just such a smart person. So I've been really appreciating thinking more about that, and like trying to not be as focused on compatibility, and more so something I'd already sort of come to terms with, which is that I like figuring out like the ideal shape or form for a relationship, rather than like making it so categorically, in line with standards or expectations. It's more like, what is the shape of this that's like most true to the sculpture of our relationship? Picking up the pace a little bit to get through taking and leaving, I've been taking vouching for things. Okay. I've already spoken about the magic of word of mouth to really allow you to step into places more positively. But I got a word of mouth rec from my dentist. So I got my dentist off of a word of mouth recommendation from one of my friends. I put out a call when I moved here, like, who do I need to go see? And I got a recommendation and I went with it, and I love my dentist. And then for my dentist, he recommended my periodontist, because I am giving myself the gift of a tooth for my 30th birthday. Long story short, basically I have 3 baby teeth because my youthful spirit is unrelenting. And so my mouth has a couple spots where the root is very, very short. And one was actually removed on the bottom row when I was in middle school so that my braces could be aligned better. I don't really understand the full story. And so I never got the implant after that. So for 15 years, I have not been chewing on the right side of my mouth because I'm basically missing a molar. And so my dentist, who I got off the word of mouth, very astutely, wisely pointed out to me that like, there is no rush. Like, you don't need to do the procedure. Like, you can live the way you've been living. And though, if you are going to get it, don't you want to enjoy more time with it? Since it does last like your entire life, the implant would. It's not like veneers. We have to like get them updated every 10 years. And I was like, that one paradigm shift was enough for me to book the appointment. And he gave me the word of mouth rec to the periodontist and had really shining praise for them. And I went to the office and I was blown away. When is the last time you went to a medical center and you were blown away? And that is the ethereal nature, ethereal quality of word of mouth recommendations. Is it feels like you're just following a little treasure map that someone made for you. And I got to the little chest and I opened it up, and the periodontist office was in an old schoolhouse. So it's extremely beautiful, historic brick building, beautiful landscaping out front, like the colors of the trees, beautiful in the fall, huge windows inside the office, and then a bunch of amazing art, painting, stained glass art, like mobiles that other patients, I'd asked about it. And basically the story is that patients have been gifting the doctor there those things because I don't know why else. You just have a really good relationship with your periodontist. I'm like, something is at foot here. If people care about this place enough that they got dental surgery or whatever the hell to give art, I'm like, that is not something you can do performatively. It's like you would not give a doctor that you've just paid probably out of pocket lots of money to a gift like that unless they genuinely are someone special. So immediately I felt the glow of that place. And again, they don't want you to believe that you can feel glow inside of a dentist office, but you actually can. You actually can, but it's going to take some time to find it. It's going to take some time to realize. Look at the lyrics to that song, the theme song of Drake and Josh, and tell me that those aren't extremely life-affirming mantras. Really actually good lyrics that maybe subconsciously I processed from all my years of watching that show. Okay, so much for the rapid round. I'm also taking annualizing events. This past month, I did have a dinner with friends to commemorate the 1-year anniversary of our Harvest Moon dinner, where we all just got Vietnamese food and then we went around and said what we're harvesting this year, like what we've realized, what seeds we've planted that we feel like we've really gotten to pull up, our accomplishments, our successes, etc. And then we went on a nice long autumnal walk. And my friend reached out this year and wanted to do it again. And I was like, that's such a good idea. Like, why don't we annualize this? And also, I have been looking at my 2026 calendar of events, and I've basically mapped out all of the events from this year that I want to host again and make them like a second annual. Because if you think about hosting as like a big challenge and a big obstacle and something very time intensive, it is. And once you put in the legwork though of like planning a gathering, if you want to make it easier on yourself, just host the same thing the next year. You can reuse the invite, you can reuse a lot of the decorations or the plan for it, the timing of it, like make it easier, work harder, not smarter. Wait, wow. I mean, if you want to, I'm going to work smarter though. So I've been enjoying figuring out how to basically create my own templates, because I spoke in a previous episode about how I don't like the templatification of life. Like, I feel like Partyful is just a very like sterile template. But I feel like I like when you've created something, templatizing that for yourself. So it's like my own event becomes my template for my next event. So it's like my own creativity becomes its own template. Like once I've created a template for my camping trips, I love using that same spreadsheet year over year. And if you want access to my camping spreadsheet, it is on my Patreon, $3 tier. But also if you really want it, DM me and I will send it to you, actually. So yes, I'm also taking my Washington State ID. I finally got my photo taken. An ID, a driver's license, a passport is a time capsule. I don't have any time capsules that I can think of. I remember in 5th grade, I wrote a letter to myself graduating high school because my 5th grade teacher had us all do it. So I was able to get that out of a time capsule. But I'm like, I don't think there's too many other things that I've planted to reveal later. But an ID is not necessarily something you've planted to reveal later, but it is something that's like in 10 years, you'll look back at the photo and you'll realize how much your appearance has changed. But right now, my driver's license is current. I'm like, this is what I currently look like. But for the past, I would say 3 years, my driver's license did not match what I currently looked like. My hair was different. My hair color was different. The way I did my makeup was different. I didn't have my eyebrow piercing. I didn't have... Actually, I'm not wearing these glasses in the photo, but anyway, it's interesting to feel like my orientation, my approach to it this time was like, I'm not trying to get the best photo. I'm just trying to get the most accurate photo to what I look like right now. Like I want to get a good snapshot of my current look, my current essence, so that I can look back on this and maybe I won't be like, that's the best face I've ever served, but I will be like, that is genuinely what I looked like. And I got exactly that. So I'm quite happy. I'm also potentially changing the shape of my R's because I'm like someone who writes basically cursive and I don't use the cursive R, lowercase r, because I think it's fugly. So I just use a normal R, but then it looks like a V and it confuses people. So now I've been trying to do a capital R, but then I think people are going to think it's a K. So I'm experimenting. It's been a long time since I've changed my handwriting, but don't forget, there's so many aspects to your sense of self that you can refresh at any time. I'm also taking a new departure saying, because when I was in New York, we were talking about this one joke that Joe Sunday has where they say, I don't understand why people are always telling me to like get home safe. Like that's not up to me, which is so true. It's like get home safe is like a command. It's like get home safe. You get home safe. One of my friends was like, I say it more like get home safe as in like a wishing or like a wish or like a prayer. But I'm like, in that case, it's more like looking up to the sky, get her home safe. Like telling it to somebody else besides the person that you're sending home. Or people will say, text me when you get home, which is sweet. But I was like, what's something else I can say in place of those that is more reflective of how I actually feel? Or like is more actionable? Because like get home safe, it's like, okay, what is that actually doing? It's just like the easiest thing to say. But so we came up with, I was basically saying that I am skilled at coming up with affirmations. And so on the spot, I just tried to come up with something to replace get home safe. And I came up with, may your arrival at home bring you pleasure and dignity. I don't know why pleasure and dignity were the first 2 words that came to me, but I actually love it. And then at the end, when we all walked each other to the subway / each other's apartments, we all said that to each other. And I thought it was so beautiful. May your arrival at home bring you pleasure and dignity. Because when I come home, I'm like, I'm home. It definitely brings me pleasure. And my space ideally does bring me dignity. If I've not been taking good care of it though, maybe not. Finally, I'm taking the new Lily Allen album, West End Girl. I was recommended this by my friend Jared in New York. So it was a word of mouth recommendation. And I know at least one of you, when you were responding to my survey about a piece of art that impacted you, you said, or no, I asked you all, what is a word of mouth recommendation you got that you followed and how was it? And one of you said West End Girl, or multiple of you said West End Girl. And I also was recommended this by a friend in New York, and I went and listened to it pretty soon after and was just completely taken by it, just like struck, mesmerized, just glued to it. I think Lily Allen is one of the greatest living storytellers we have. And that's not hyperbole. I've always really enjoyed her lyrical abilities and like the precision of them. And they're just very pithy. Like they're pithy, they're snappy, they're good. Like, and what I appreciate about the album is like, it just feels like that is something that had to get made. Like that is something she did because she needed to process this like huge life event. And however you feel about, you know, the naming of names in art and sort of the publicity of celebrity relationships, et cetera, like the actual just story arc to it, it was a page turner. Like she created something extremely compelling and magnetic, and so many people were just pulled into it gravitationally. And it's just like an album that I've been excited about that I haven't felt this way about in a while. Leaving in reorg, the brotherly month of reorg eval, I'm leaving thinking I can respond to emails on my phone. No. Laptop. Computer still has some dignity to it. That's what I wrote down as a bullet point. I was having this issue where I just could not tackle my email responsibilities. Like there were certain things I needed to get back to and certain tasks that needed to be done via email. And I just could not bring myself to do them, but I would have all the emails marked as unread in my inbox. So I'd see them all the time and it just really bothered me. And then I finally realized when I get on my laptop, I'm able to so much more readily like tackle those things. And so I just realized I don't need to be like so self-deprecating about slacking or being blocked on like answering emails on my phone. It's more so, oh, you just need to accommodate more time on laptop. Because when I'm on my laptop, it just feels like I'm more in control. I'm not quite addicted to it like my phone. I can go whole days without opening my laptop, you know, but like I'm not going whole days without touching my phone. So it just feels like if I'm talking about enjoying the process and like setting myself up for success with the environment I'm in, laptop is the way. So if you're struggling with responding to things, try laptop. And now we're going to run to your end of the Revelatorium room to see what you're taking and leaving. Starting with leaving, Jory, who's 31, writing from my sister's place in Toronto, looking outside at the multicolored leaves, said she's leaving behind the pressure to make most friendships become quote unquote close. I have a pattern of being supportive for people who never reciprocate, and this overextending always ends up hurting my feelings. I try to be there for my friends emotionally and act as a consistent and reliable presence, but I need to learn how to extend this treatment only to people who show me the same in return. And I really appreciated how you opened this as leaving the pressure to make most friendships close, like that being the rationale for you continuing to overextend yourself because you think you're going to be able to bring that person closer. Because I feel like I'm at a point now where like I enjoy the heterogeneity of my social life. I enjoy being socially promiscuous. I enjoy having like a range of people in my life that want to do different things, right? Like I have some friends that want to do the road trip. I have some friends that want to party with me. I have some friends that like everybody, and a lot of people overlap in multiple things, right? But it's like I'm accepting that it's okay for me to have party friends, or it's okay for me to have long distance friends that I'm not really in contact with except for the once a year that I go there and spend copious amounts of time with them. Like it's okay to have close relationships and it's okay to have more shallow ones, but it's like important to have the full, like you definitely need the close ones. And then once you've locked those in, it's kind of like your emergency fund. Once you've got the emergency fund, then you can fuck around with some other investments, maybe, is like financially the advice that I was given. And it's the same way in friendships, I feel, not to relate, again, our social lives to a marketplace, but I was a business major and it fucked my brain. And so now it does come back to that framing sometimes. But anyway, maybe these are people who are just going to be more casual friends of yours. Like maybe you do enjoy their presence in some way, but they're not showing up like you want them to show up. And I think like this is the litmus test. Like you are extending yourself, you're modeling, supporting the person. And if they're not reflecting that, then maybe that just shows you, okay, they're not going to be able to be in this role in my life. Maybe they need to be in something a little shallower. Or maybe not at all. It could be anything. Justin said, I'm sadly leaving behind my favorite cereal due to recent changes in ingredients by the company, which basically completely ruined its taste for me. So I've had to close the chapter on that. Been eating the same bowl of cereal before bed every night for the past 8 years. However, I'm glad to report that I found a new cereal to take its place. This really shocked me, the fact that you were able to find a replacement for something you were doing for 8 years. Like, the only thing I can compare this to is like makeup. Like when a certain type of makeup is stopped, goes out of production, it's like, well, fuck, that was my go-to. And maybe you can find it in corners of the internet, but eventually you're going to have to move on. And eventually you do find something else, but it's hard to have faith. So I'm glad that you did and you found something to replace it with. Emma, who's 24 in their cozy Brooklyn apartment, is choosing to trust the magic around me. That's what they're taking from October to November. And of course, on the Revelatorium podcast, I had to read that because that's the ethos. Abby, who's 26, writing in from her kitchen countertop, is taking hosting, being a space for friends to gather however they are, from ragingly silly to somber. I can hold space and host people regardless. She's also taking junk journaling, not in an aesthetic way for social media, but just genuine trash scrap booking that allows me to reminisce on memorabilia I've collected. And I need you to send me photos, Abby, because I know you're saying it's not in an aesthetic way, but I would love references and examples because I'm starting to collect enough, or I'm wanting to collect more of that stuff, but then I don't quite know the shape it's going to take. And I would just love some references to give me a little bit more, ideas. Hannah, who's 27 in New Hampshire, is finding small ways to make my office job more bearable. I recently bought myself a slightly obnoxious yellow soft floor chair, and the ability to recline and just be comfortable at work in that has made a huge difference, and my hips aren't nearly as sore every day. Trying to find ways to brighten my space and make my time there more enjoyable. Obsessed with that. And then I asked, what is a word of mouth recommendation you've gotten from someone that you followed, and how did it turn out? And this was another one where I was like, is this something that you're going to be able to pull off the top of your head? And honestly, yeah, a lot of you could. Teddy, who's writing in from his comfy couch and is 26, said, I don't know if I got a word of mouth recommendation, but I gave one for an event in November. It's for a fire/autumn celebration in a small museum about an early medieval settlement that used to be near where I live. It's a living history museum, and I'm very excited. I love fire. I love autumn. I'm like, where is that, Teddy? Can you send that to me? Because now I'm like, I want that word of mouth rec. And immediately jumping out the gate, I'm like, okay, word of mouth rec's extremely rich, because this one column of this spreadsheet, I feel like, is just chock full of good things. Kaisa, who's 24 in Halifax, Nova Scotia, said, I was complaining about streaming services being expensive, and my friend told me to try Canopy through my local library. I've watched a couple movies on there now, and it is amazing. Yeah, Canopy's inventory is not like super far reaching, but like they're definitely, like, if you were just looking for something to watch, it is definitely a good spot to check. And I always forget. Okay, this one from Morgan, who's 35 in the PNW. Directions from locals cannot be underrated. Google and Apple Maps both prioritize major arteries, but there's often faster routes if you actually look at the map or listen to people who drive the area frequently. My work commute reduced by at least 15 minutes each way, 30 minutes a day reclaimed. I'm like, this is so motivating. I'm like, I'm not a driver, but I'm like, I wholeheartedly, I've never considered this, but I wholeheartedly agree that like these app websites, these map websites are not necessarily giving you the most efficient way, even though that's what they're peddling. Sometimes people know the most efficient way, and that's the only way. Jory said, I was recommended this podcast months ago and it's been a constant ever since. The Revelatorium questions make me engage with it in a way that I don't with other podcasts. So it feels collaborative and like a real community. And very grateful you wrote in to say that. And yeah, I always just think this is like a funny podcast to like recommend to people, because to me, it just seems like they'd be, I don't know if when you're recommending to, like, I'm curious if you're recommending like a specific episode or if you tell them to listen to the first episode. I'm like, I don't ever really introduce who I am in these. And so I'm like, are people figuring that out? Do I need to be, or am I introducing who I am in the 2 hours that I'm speaking? And I don't actually need to be like, here's my 5-minute elevator pitch. There was also a response from Justin. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it was basically an endorsement for his city's gay run club, who gave him all of the hot tips for Pride weekend, like what to do. And everything he went to based off those recs was really good. So again, like community organizations can give you word of mouth recs as well. And run clubs can be, especially gay guy run clubs, that's the fucking mafia. Like, you will be rich in connection wherever you go if you join one of those, genuinely. Because my friends that are in those, it's like wherever we go, they are seeing people. Okay, fourth question was, have you been to any shows, performances / experienced any art recently that deeply impacted you? What was it and how did it land? Zada, who's 30 in Newcastle, UK, said, I just went to see a jazz artist called Emma Jean Thackeray last night, and it was so powerful. Second song in, she played Black Hole, and out of nowhere, I'm crying. Live music is something else, man. I cried at the Dijon show, and I was not expecting that, but it really hit a high point for me because he's such a soulful person. Like it was just really raw. I want to read all of these, but I'm getting to a point of speaking where I'm struggling to pronounce words, and that worries me. I do want to read this one, though, from Emma. I recently saw a play that was performed in a restaurant called Oh Honey. The play is about 4 different mothers who have met in a Facebook group and meet up every month. Each of these women have very distinct personalities, and as we watch them interact, it becomes clear that the Facebook group they met on is a support group for the mothers of college boys accused of sexual assault. The writing was impeccable, and the setting of the restaurant almost made me feel as if I were eavesdropping, not to mention the audience was served a mug of soup before the show. It was a lovely evening. The play really shone a light on this distinct point of view I hadn't thought of before. Each of the women has her own internalized misogyny that she's wrestling with, that's in constant conflict with being a boy mom. I found it to be extremely compelling, and the acting work being done was top tier. As an actor myself, it was also an inspiring project to watch, a reminder that art is important no matter how small a project is. And this seems like a really big project. I really wish I knew this existed. It sounds amazing. I love soup. I love restaurants. I love eavesdropping. I love taboo topics like this. I think that's such an interesting point of view. A couple of you, including E.T., who's 28 in Michigan, went to Rocky Horror this month or last month, which makes sense. One of your first times. The props, costumes, and rituals were so fun. I loved how it encouraged attendees to be openly their extra selves. It was beautiful. Yes, very extra. I think that's a good way to put it. I saw it in high school, and that was a very eye-opening experience. Introduced me to kind of like cult classics. One of you, Grace in Durham, North Carolina, just watched Brokeback Mountain for the first time ever a couple weeks ago. I keep thinking about the aesthetics of the Wyoming mountains, the characters and their lines, the costuming, the music. It's a movie that is referenced so much, but not many remember the actual story, just gay cowboys. I keep wanting someone to talk about it with, but everyone saw the movie a long time ago. Yeah, I saw it a couple years ago, and it was really surprising how much it like emotionally devastated me because, again, like people really just tout the gay cowboy thing. But it is such a well done story as well. I'm going to end on Anne from Toronto, who said, my partner is a professional pianist in a touring band, and I attend his shows whenever his band is playing in our city, which happened a few times this season. Watching him perform moves me deeply because I see a side of him that is completely uninhibited and lost in flow. He looks truly free, and it's so beautiful to see someone you love being that free. I loved that. Like, I love seeing my loved ones be free. It's so important to me, like when I go camping with them, like when we did like Pookie's night out at the state fair, like allowing people to free themselves to like pursue their desires and like fill out what they want. It is true. Like I loved reading you articulate that because it really clicked in for me. Okay, I am going to resign from this episode. Thank you for being here for 33, and I'll see you all at 34. Thanks so much for listening, and Catherine out.